in studio now, joining me on my immediate right is George Njoroge, who is an IT expert and the CEO of the East African Data Handlers, as well as George Kegoro, who is a lawyer and the executive director of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming in. A lot of issues have come up. We've had press briefing after press briefing with all stakeholders wanting to have a say on this particular election. But I will start with you, George Kegoro from the Kenya National Human Rights Commission. What is your stand on how this whole process has been since Kenyans took to the polls on Tuesday?
I think we've had the international observers express themselves, and they've committed the mistake all international observers commit when they come to Kenya. They regard polling day activity as a reflection of the election. That we have never had problems with polling. It's always peaceful, and in 2013 it was fine. In 2007, when people fought, it was fine. Polling day is not the problem with Kenyan elections. The problems start immediately after polling. So if you listen to what everybody has said, they've given this election a characterization of free and fair based on polling day activity. That's not a problem. Problems start immediately after that. What should have followed polling day? It is the counting of votes and transmission of results. That is where all the problems that we still have now began, and that is where all the problems in 2007 began. So this election, in terms of quality, is not an improvement on 2007. It's not an improvement on 2013 either. Up to now, what did the IBC represent? It represented that it was going to have scanners placed at every polling station. It was going to simultaneously scan the results on Form 34A, put them on a public portal, as well as transmitting them to the Constituency Tallying Center and the National Tallying Center. Up to now, that has not happened. Up to now, as we speak, that has not happened. What we have is a mongrel process similar to what we had in 2013, where we would run the elections based on technologies. It broke down. We started doing manual. That is what is going on right now in Bomas. And we started then announcing things on polling day. From around 9 o'clock, from 8 o'clock, figures started appearing on screens. Up to now, the question is, what is the source of those figures? There has been no general public citing of Form 34A, which is the only evidence of the election results. So in conclusion, this election has had very familiar failings, the same failings that all the previous two elections have had, which is everything that happens immediately after polling.
So you're also from Kurangu, South Yangu, and you have been monitoring these elections even before we began to when Kenyans went to the polls to now. We've seen the allegations that NASA has put forth on hacking and the system being manipulated. Your thoughts?
We don't know if NASA has alleged hacking. That is a serious allegation. We thought that IBC would find it important for their own credibility to have a clear and externalized investigation of that problem. Instead, what happened? We have the Ezra Chiloba coming up to say it is okay, none of the things that are being alleged is true. We are operating in an extremely low trust environment. We don't trust the IBC. We've told them that. We've learned, as a result of the painful experiences we've had, unfortunately, we've learned not to trust our institutions. We've learned that the only way in which our institutions are to carry us forward is to show us evidence at every stage. They failed to show us evidence of Form 34A, the basis on which they are announcing the results. And when we are riding on that suspicion, we get into a new area of suspicion around the technologies. Then they say, we've checked, everything is okay, without telling us what they've checked, how they've checked, and how that is qualified. It may be that everything is okay. I'm not saying that the allegation by NASA are necessarily true, but based on our extremely low trust environment, then IBC should have the political judgment that they need to demonstrate that they need to be not only okay, but also publicly demonstrate to all of us and for all our benefit that the allegations being made are unfounded. That has not happened.
All right, let's pick the mind of the expert here on IT, George Njoroge. A lot has been said on the IEBC system. We've had the IEBC be on the defensive against the allegations that were made by NASA. But in simple terms, just for the sake of our audience, was there hacking?
Well, to speak on the hacking part, based on the materials that were provided by the team, it does not prove in any sense the smallest iota of any form of hacking. So what we do at East African Data Handlers, our core competency is computer forensics. So we are the only specialized forensics company in this part of the world. So what we do on an everyday basis is those kind of things.
Have you scrutinized this particular system?
I have scrutinized the log files, which would essentially be the same that even if it was IBC coming to me, they would give me a certain access to log files. What this team were provided by their, whoever provided the information to them, they gave them the wrong file and made a certain judgment on the file that was given to them without really understanding what was given to them, what does it do on the computer, and what would be its purpose in this very
So in your understanding, what was given to the NASA principals that they give to Kenyans? Just
what was
explain that
given
to us.
to them is something called an error log file. So every time an SQL system is running, so a computer is running, it simply gets to note any activities that are happening on the system that would be erroneous. That are any error that occurs on the system, it logs them there. But it is not an activity log on the system. It's just showing that the activities that are happening on the system, if there's any error, it logs it there. Now, the first file that runs, the DLL file that runs, if you Google the name, it's a system file. It's a normal file within SQL. So it's nothing unique. It is a common file that you find within SQL. Anybody who has SQL will find that file in them. It does not do anything harmful to the system. In essence, it's a source of information for the system other than a source for destroying the system, as it were.
So for you, NASA doesn't have valid concerns on this one?
Well, on this particular file that was given to them, I genuinely believe that whoever interpreted the file for them did not do a pretty good job to make them understand what this file is and what its purpose is. And if you critically look at it, even if it was provided the evidence in a court of law, it cannot survive because it proves neither does it provide any hacking, neither does it show that somebody successfully logged in, because it shows, if you look at the log file, it shows you that the log did not go through, and even shows the users that were attempting to log in. So there are about 3 or 4 users, Chebukati, SA, them trying to log in. Even the system shows you, even the log files they provided, somebody tried to log in using the name Chebukati, and the system locked them out. So they did not actually go through to log in successfully and be able to have access to the database.
So could this, in essence, mean that when all is said and done, that someone really did try to get into the IEBC system, whether they got any information or manipulated anything, that there was an attempt?
Well, part of what is available in terms of public information is that IEBC is not using SQL. IEBC is using a completely different system called Oracle. So SQL and Oracle would be like a Samsung and an iPhone. Completely different manufacturers, they do completely different things and they address different audiences. But if it came from an IBC environment, that data would seemingly come from either a simulation server, so it should be a test environment, or could be somebody created a database, called it IBC, and gave them all the values because you have no contextual source of the actual source file, and then provided it to them. But in essence, if it's an actual IBC server file, it would take them less than 20 seconds to log into the systems and see whether somebody logged in, essentially, and be able to pick it up. So the truth is that if it was actually, and I've seen IBC talk about it and said that they have confirmed that nobody logged into their system, because the log files then and if you're given the same and you need somebody to interpret it for you, it would come up with the same conclusion. It is not a login. It is not a successful hack. It is just a simple log activities of a server. None of it relating to any in terms of manipulation of data. It does not show that data is being manipulated. It does not prove that anything is happening. And if you were to manipulate data, the complexity of manipulating data for each and every candidate would be extremely complex. Yeah. So this morning I've tried to do my analysis and trying to presume there are about 14,500 or thereabout candidates. If you want to manipulate the tables, you'd need to write code for each and every one of them, because so that when their data comes, is populated within certain algorithms into the system. That would be a completely complex infrastructure, and it would be very difficult to execute it within such a short time of the election.
Kigoro, you mentioned something about the trust issues that Kenyans have right now with the electoral body. And we're just about 4 days to go before the time lapses for the IEBC to announce results. How do you assess the situation right now with the trust issues Kenyans have and them holding their breath awaiting these results vis-a-vis all these allegations that have been thrown around against the electoral body?
I think the sense is that we've been here before. It is another deja vu moment. In 2007, what happened? Form 16A, that is what it was called. It is now the one that is called Form 34A. Form 16A failed. The IBC, the ECK, was announcing results that were not based on anything. Then polling officials disappeared on Kivuitu, and then we know that there were problems after that. In 2013, last election, we started with the Form 34A when the preparation had been on the basis that Form 34A would be keyed into a gadget from the polling station, that then the result would be transmitted simultaneously to the constituency and to the National Tallying Center. Now, that did not happen. There were 34,000 polling stations in the last election. The numbers have increased in this election. So what IBC did in the last election, because there was a failure to transmit, then they said they would do a manual tallying, very similar to the one that is going on in this election. They would do a manual tallying, and that would be centralized at IBC, at Bomas at that time. So because they would have had to tally 34,000 items, they said they would just simply tally the constituency level items. So they assumed that whatever had been generated at the polling station level was fine, or would have been presumed to be fine, and then they did constituency, level tallying process. This election, armed with that history we've had and with a favorable constitution that says that the only place where results are, where votes are counted and where results are determined is the polling station, there was a judgment to the effect that you must provide a result at the polling station, and that result, because of accountability, needs to then to be uploaded at the polling station in real time, so that there is no post polling manipulation opportunity provided. So what has happened in this election is whatever they are doing, whatever remedial, they are doing the kind of remedials that they tried to do in the last election in 2013. But those remedials don't deal with they don't address the question of we voted 2 days ago. These forms have been at large. Wherever they've been, nobody knows how their handling is. So the idea of that environment where you have agents and the vigilance of citizens and the polling official, all of them together as the information is being sent in real time, that cannot be recreated because it's simply not that environment. So what we have is people at Bomas are trying on their own and without the context in which this information was created to interpret it and give a result. So that will never, that is not the kind of environment that increases credibility.
So how do you
confidence.
expect the IEBC to conduct itself in the next few days before its time lapses? Quickly.
The IBC must explain what has happened. And you see these gadgets, we paid for them. We paid heavily. It's a 54 billion shillings election. So it's not cheap. It's very, very expensive to the taxpayer and to the people who support that taxpayer, the Friends of Kenya. So these gadgets are expensive because they're supposed to work, but they didn't work. So IBC is accountable for why these things did not work, and then also demonstrating to us that notwithstanding the fact that they did not work, that has not affected the result. That is a difficult challenge for them to meet. All
right, Njoroge, quickly, as an IT expert on the systems being in question, what do you expect to see from the IEBC just as they prepare to announce the official results?
Well, I think maybe they'll take time to understand who would have shared this kind of information. And if contextually this would be a database within IEBC, they would certainly be able to find out who exactly shared it and maybe let the public know. But on a normal day, the complexity of any intrusion would be providing more additional details, would be provided more details in terms of, for instance, intrusion detection, firewalls, logs, and all that, which would substantiate any claim of hacking. So it will be a difficult process, but they would certainly be able to pick it up.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. George Njoroge, IT expert, CEO, East Africa Data Handlers, and George Kegori is a lawyer as well. He is from the Kurayangu, Sauti Yangu. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. Let's take a break as we end this first hour of the program. Remember, we have 2 more to go as we continue to monitor everything as it happens across the country with regard to this particular election. Kenyans holding their breaths, waiting for Wafula Chebukati, the IEBC chairman, to officially announce the results. And here at KTN News, we continue to have our ears on the ground on everything that is happening with regard to this election. Let's take a short break. Don't go too far. This is Kivumbi 2017.